going to make a quick little video here on what I think is probably the best modern day dagger, or like what should be pretty much the standard of daggers. It just happens to be under $20. It might be at the $20 range as of making this video. It might be just a tad more expensive, but it just happens to be cheap. It is not a cheap, crappy knife though. I was just going to show kind of like the standard of daggers, and then I'll show this because there's really not a whole heck of a lot you could say about a dagger. It's obviously it's pretty much the only like true offensive knife. Like it's designed for a certain purpose, and I wanted to show like sort of the history of daggers. Like you have the original dagger, which would be like, say, the medieval ages. Of course, daggers were around since, since caveman days or whatever you want to say. But the original dagger that we, once it was sort of standardized, would have been something like this, which was basically a crucifix-looking thing that has a very long, just pointed blade. Very simple, but also very effective. I mentioned in my one video on the that misery accordion knife, which I still have right here. Actually, I'll just show it. Which this was actually this thing here with the extrema ratio knife. Like this was basically supposed to be a modern day interpretation of that. And this thing retails for, like I said, it was like $300 Canadian or something, which is ridiculous. And I'll show the knife, which I would take, pretty much any day over this little knife here, even though this is supposed to be an interpretation of that original dagger. And when it comes to like the 21st century, or like up till that point, by World War II, this knife here, which most people will probably recognize pretty easy, which is like the Fairbairn Sykes knife. And at World War II, this became the standard. They call them fighting knives. They actually refer to them quite a bit as fighting knives, and there's whole manuals and stuff on how to use them as fighting knives. But to me, it's like you could classify like K-bars and things as fighting knives, whereas this is, to me, it's an offensive type of knife. But that's just what I call it. But that was the standard from World War II in terms of how daggers would be molded after. Would be this knife here. Of course, these are great for what their purpose is. These are great. There's nothing wrong with them, even in modern day settings, honestly, except that the medieval daggers were used for everything, like even eating their food, and that you'll see them using their daggers for that, even though they've probably used them on the battlefield and everything. I don't think you would do that with your modern day knife. But anyways, this is the dagger here, which I think is the modern day standard. It is just in every way, it is the modern day excellent dagger. To start off with, which is the MTECH dagger, I'm going to look at the sheath, which the sheath is also something that very rarely do they ever get, especially a nylon sheath right. This thing is perfect for the knife. When you put it in here and you've got the clasp port, it's just perfect. It sits in there nice. And it's lined with something, it looks like, I'm not sure what it actually is. It's not plastic. It's almost like leather. Actually, if you look at it, it's porous. I don't know if, I doubt it's shark skin, but it's something lined in there. It's not just like, sometimes they put plastic in there. Of course, you get the rattling. You also get the dampness or whatever can get to your blade. So this sheath is about perfect. This I don't really use it myself, so I'm not going to say it's that bad. I guess it's a belt clip, but I would just use the loop myself. And if you wanted to take this off, I don't think it'd be too difficult. It is there though, which is nice of them. But here's our dagger. You can see the blade is just the perfect length. They do make several variants of this. They do one with it's actually a much longer blade. They do one with serrations, and I believe the much longer blade also with serrations. Then there's one that's got like holes in here, and it's slightly lightened. But to me, this is the epitome of the design. Anything else would be kind of a personal preference. This thing I think is perfect. It's referred to as the MTECH USA. I think if you look it up, it's probably just dagger that they listed it as. It does have a part number on here, which is MT-097 440 USA design. Several companies do make this nearly identical dagger. I can't say for sure if everything is identical. Like this handle, which is also the perfect handle, it's like a, I think it's called Zytel. I would have to look up the actual specifications, but it's not like plastic. It's like that weird Zytel stuff, which is actually very strong, very tough and forgiving stuff. And of course the palm swell is just super nice. Like you can see how perfect of a dagger it is. Sometimes when you hold them, you want to hold them like this is how you should be holding something. And sometimes you get a certain grip and it makes you hold it differently, like in your hand. But this thing, when you hold it, you can go right to the actual proper grip. And then you have a guard on there, which is kind of I wouldn't say it's necessarily essential, but it's very good to have for a dagger. The blade has a titanium coating on it. That's what this is, and it makes this thing extremely rigid and hard. Like it is it could be used kind of as a little pry bar. I wouldn't go too hard on the tip, just because, you know, it's quite narrow and it's not made for prying or anything. And it also has the blood groove, which is kind of an upgrade from the older ones, you know, putting in modern technologies into design. It's got the blood groove on both sides, excellent, and a lanyard loop, which makes me happy that it's on there. You could easily put a lanyard on the Fairbairn Sykes if you wanted to put one on there, but this knife is just perfect. And the weight and balance of this makes it to me like just like the older knives, where the cheap knives, if you consider its price, you'll look at it and probably look over it as junk, but it the weight and balance is what makes the knife. This is not just a cheap knife like someone threw a blade and a handle and then, you know, made it pointy. This thing is actually balanced and is a good, like, it is a really good knife. Like, I can't say, there's not much I can say more about it because it is a dagger. The edges are quite sharp. I've sharpened it. It is easy to sharpen. Nothing wrong with it. And unlike the Fairbairn Sykes, which I have a hell of a time sharpening it. But anyways, this is a great knife. This is the MTECH USA. Also, could be under names of Smith & Wesson. There was somebody else who had the same name on it, but if it looks the same, it might be the same. I can't 100% vouch for those other ones, though, because I haven't had them in my hands. This one I can vouch for, the MTECH USA dagger, and I would say it's the modern day standard for daggers. Also happens to be at the $20 range or possibly less, which makes it makes it an instant buy. So other than that, thank you for watching.